Welcome to Unit 1, the Internet versus Web 2.0. The objectives for us for this first unit are going to be to compare and contrast Web 2.0 and the Internet, talk about HTML source code a little bit, and specifically looking at HTML tags, some basic tags, and identifying key elements of pre-Web 2.0 web design. Now I want you to take just a few moments and define these three phrases or words: HTML, the Internet, and Web 2.0. And I'm just going to be quiet for just a few minutes with this screen up because I want you to take a second and formulate some ideas in your head, because there's a lot of misconceptions and there's a lot of information out there describing these terms. So take a few minutes to think about that. If you need additional time, you can always pause the video and come back and continue. The first thing that needs to be said is that many people, when they look at this slide or would look at this description and would look at the terminology, the Internet versus Web 2.0, there's a lot of disagreement out there about the naming of these two states. A lot of people don't even agree that such a transition or such a either-or distinction can be made. What I've chosen to do to share with you is to at least break this into two categories so that you can begin to wrap your head around what Web 2.0 means. And like I said, some people will disagree and won't want to call it Web 2.0. But there needs to be a distinction made between how we used to experience the Internet prior to the early 2000s and where we're at right now. Think of the Internet as static, one-way communication. Information is put up onto, quote-unquote, the Internet, and it is consumed by everybody else who's sitting at their computers. There are gatekeepers and there are not many gatekeepers that control the number of posts and of web pages and what goes where. And they keep a pretty tight rein on who gets to make those distinctions. The common thing that I've said before, how I've described it, is the first iteration of the Internet was very library-esque. You went to a specific location, you went and searched for things, you got information. Much like if you can think about getting in your car, driving down the road to the library, getting out, going in, picking up a book, and there you have your information. There's a transition, however, that happened, oh gosh, many years ago now, but we're still talking about it. And there's a transition into Web 2.0. The 2.0 comes from the reference of the difference in software. Like when software versions come out, like a 1.0 versus 2.0, that's where it comes from. And Web 2.0 is compared and contrasted to the Internet as number one, being dynamic. I'll go ahead and slip down to my fourth point there, the read and write web. It is, if you could think about the Internet as being simply the reading web, as a person using the Internet, Web 2.0 is now dynamic. It is reading and writing. There are multiple avenues of communication. It's not just one way. It's 2 ways, 3 ways, 4 ways, 5 ways, many, many ways. It is, and comparatively to the small number of gatekeepers of the Internet, it's literally wide open. Web 2.0 is wide open with all of the different tools that are available. We could list a couple. 2 of them we'll talk about in the next 2 units, blogs and wikis. But in particular, there is a component of a sharing, a giving and a taking, community. A Web 2.0, often social media, while sometimes it can be classified as Web 2.0, for our purposes we will think about it in that way. But this gives you a pretty good idea of Internet versus Web 2.0. And there will be additional resources at the bottom of this page if you're wanting to get your hands a little bit more dirty with the difference between these two. The code. Behind the internet is nothing but code. And a little bit below, we're going to actually go through and take a look at some HTML code to show you what we're talking about. All of the internet, all web pages, are based off of HTML. It's a coding language that was written that stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is bits of text that literally create the pages that you see when you're online surfing from web page to web page to web page. And at any time, you can actually go in and see the code. It's called the source code, the back end of a website. And from most web browsers, and there'll be another tutorial below this that will show you the process of going to View. It's usually up in the upper left-hand corner of a browser's menu, and then going from View to source code. And you can go through and look at the code and the nature of how a page is made. There are a few HTML basics. HTML codes are characterized as tags. I've listed a few of them right here: the HTML tag, the head, the meta, the paragraph, the P, and what you would use for an image source. You'll notice that for the first four, there are open tags and closed tags. You can tell the difference because of the slash in the second tag. And the information that you want to be published onto a web page goes between these two tags, what's called the open tag and the closed tag. These, of course, are very simple HTML tags, but once you have an idea of these, you can look at the source code of a page and begin to break down how it's done, kind of like getting to see the backbone or the skeleton, the structure of a website. That being said, you can look at the code of a website and the HTML of a website and identify it as either simple, semi-complex, or complex. And there's a reason why we're going to take a look at a couple of different source codes just to wrap our minds around how we might classify the source codes, because that's going to tell us a little bit about what it means to be a static web page and be on the internet, or to be a Web 2.0 tool. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. You will need to scroll down and click on the next tutorial, Accessing Source Code.